From WPTV News Channel 5, it's Slay Your Day with TA.
My guest is Schultz, who's a comedian that has graced South Florida for many years to come. Even you grew up here, so you're very familiar with us, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's nice being home.
And you have the, I would presume, daunting job of relaunching comedy in South Florida next week at the Palm Beach Improv.
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't even call it daunting. I'm actually pretty thrilled and honored that they asked me to, be at the beginning of their new, reopening of the club after all of this. So it's exciting. It's actually very exciting.
But there has to be some sort of reality of jokes that may have worked before the quarantine might not work now.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is the landscape of comedy has changed as far as there are new social norms that are kind of put in the zeitgeist that you have to call attention to, and certain things going on societally that some comics are very good at tackling. I'm not really a social commentary or political kind of comic. I'll poke fun at it, but I'm not good at kind of deconstructing it and anything like that. To me, my comedy is just about having fun. It's escapism. And I think that's what we need more than ever right now, because I think it's just too much, we're being inundated too much with so much stress that the fact that the improv is now reopening and just bringing laughter, and I hate using the word distraction, but that's kind of what it is. And I think we need it more than ever now. So for me, it's not so much that there are things that you can't talk about anymore, but I think it's just more of a revisit to a, if you will, simpler time in comedy,
Yeah, Renee Hart, one of the partners there at the Palm Beach Improv, said the world needs some laughter right now, and I couldn't agree more. But it has
100%.
it has to be a little weird. September 28th, the clubs get to reopen to 50%. The first shows are with you October 2nd and 3rd, but at 50%, that's kind of like a void in the room. Does that kind of feel weird as a performer?
No, not at all. Because one, it's because the Improv is an amazing club on its own. It's again gorgeous club. I'm so thrilled they're reopening, and the fact that they're doing it safely with social distancing, I think one puts in the more inclined to come out and enjoy it, and two, as a comedian, I mean, it's been months since I've been able to be on a comedy stage, especially one as amazing as the Improv. So I don't care if 6 people come out and they're seated, all spread out throughout the club, as long as they're in person and they're there to laugh. As a comedian, it's what feeds our soul. And I think the relationship between a comedian and an audience is so symbiotic that the energy that we give them builds feedback. And again, it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 people or 2 people, it's that intimate relationship that I think has been missing in any kind of live performance. Because as great as Zoom has been for keeping performing, around, it's definitely not the same.
So for Renee and her team at the Improv, and for all the comedians and all the other venues, that had to be a big loss from not working for 6 months.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, personally as a comedian, it was a huge loss. Because a lot of my work as of late or past couple of years have been on cruise ships. So that was, one of the first industries to really be hit hard. So financially, emotionally, mentally, the loss has just been astounding, really. And I can only imagine for a comedy club, especially, again, one like the Improv, that their financial loss on its own has been really hard to get through. But again, that they're reopening, as socially distanced that they have to do, it's that light at the end of the tunnel that I think comedians and club owners and comedy clubs have been looking for, and now we're seeing it get closer. The pinhole's getting closer and bigger now, so it's really a relief, and again, it's just so exciting that it's starting to come back, even if it is the new normal for a little while as far as social distancing and playing it safe. I'd rather it be that than be nothing. And I think most audience members would agree.
I agree with you 100%. And the people at the Improv are just so decent. They're just so kind and caring that you want them to succeed.
Oh yeah, the improv is like a family. You know, I lived in Los Angeles for 20 years. I left South Florida, was in LA for 20 years, just moved back. And one of my home clubs in LA was the Hollywood Improv on Melrose Avenue. And the club is like family. They really are. They're a very tight-knit group of people, even if they're in Florida, California, Baltimore, Texas, no matter where they are, they're all part of the same family. And they're all really wonderful, decent people, both on the business end of it and the personal end of it. Like Renee Hart, when I first started in South Florida in the mid-90s, she was one of my first supporters and has always kept me in the loop and has always remembered me for projects like this or anything else. So I'm eternally grateful for the kindness that the Improv has.
You kind of touched on this earlier, but my job is to talk about events, restaurants, fun things to do. So obviously none of that was existing for a while. I had to pivot. And I read somewhere that you did something called Comedy Under Quarantine. Is that sort of your way to have a creative outlet?
Yeah. I think during this whole quarantine and pandemic, artists, whether they're comedians, singers, painters, dancers, whatever, need some kind of creative outlet. So we adjusted to what was available. Again, whether it was a Zoom show or recently I've been doing these 60-second news bits that are on my social media, which is just really quick, topical joke, news story, and then something silly just to keep my writing muscle going and just have some form of creative expression. So again, I think that's what artists have had to do. We've, throughout history, really, you adapt to what the environment and what what's going on in the world, just to still fill that creative fire that's inside of you. Yeah, what have you been reporting on with all of this is going on?
I did real news and it was really scary. So I'm trying to get away from that.
Same here.
So Flip, you obviously know a lot of the players in the comedy industry. What have the ramifications of the coronavirus been? Just generically speaking, with other comics and other venues.
Well, it's like I was saying, the virus, it hit our industry so hard because the virus was spread amongst crowds, and our industry is predicated upon large crowds getting together. So it's definitely been throughout the industry, just like I was saying, something that everybody had to adjust to. And I know a lot of comedians. There's some comedians that I'm very friendly with who won't even go out to do a show if there's a large group and there's not enough distance between them. Like I did a drive-in comedy show where people were literally honking their horns for applause, which it was weird, but at the same time, it's like, hey, instant reaction. I'll take it, But there was a show that I did recently back in California. It was on a beach. It was outdoors. But the audience in this specific area weren't very weren't excited about wearing masks, so a lot of them didn't. And I still did my show. I kept my distance from him on the stage, but I know of another comedian who saw this and he refused to go up just because he didn't feel safe. And that's kind of been what's been happening in the industry. Is just a lot of comedians have been saying, to hell with it, I just want to do a show. And a lot of other comedians have trying to, again, play it safe. So it's been a little bit of a delicate balancing act. But again, we're, creative people find a way to make it work within our own boundaries.
All right, Flip Schultz is going to open back up comedy in South Florida, October 2nd and 3rd. Thank you so much for doing that. The following week, it's DL Hughley, the 9th and 11th. You can get your tickets at palmbeachimprov.com. Hey, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. And again, I can't wait to see everybody at the Improv on those days. And remember, it's going to be fun. We're going to be able to laugh again and just have a good time while being safe. So that's the main thing to remember there. Hope to see you guys there.
Thanks, Flip.
Slay Your Day can be found in the WPTV app on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, or Android TV. Plus on the Taste and See South Florida Facebook page and the WPTV free mobile app. Okay.